Hello and welcome to a special birthday edition of Film Revision. My birthday, as a matter of fact. And for my birthday, I'm going to treat myself to a haircut, which many of you have been emailing me about in the last couple of weeks. Now this is our 7th of 25 video blogs in which we'll be talking about films from 1983. Now invariably when people talk to me about becoming a guest on Film Revision, they almost always ask if they can do a John Hughes film. Well, I got a news flash for you. John Hughes was not the only filmmaker working in the 80s. As a matter of fact, he didn't direct his first film, 16 Candles, until 1984. He did, however, write a film that was released in 1983, and it is one of the most enduring comedies of the decade, and our film for discussion today, Mr. Mom. Our guests this time around are the beautiful Diane Chang, a young journalist originally from Taiwan, is that correct?
That's right.
And also David Sajadi, an uber-talented writer and actor, originally from Clifton Forge, Virginia. We're going to start with you, Diane.
Well, my first thought when the movie ended literally was, oh my God, such innocent times. It's just...
I mean, yes and no. I mean, like, it was an innocent movie.
Exactly. I mean, I guess it was the way that they dealt with family and the way they dealt with, you know, child rearing. It's so different. This was before, like, Baby Mama or any of those, you know, single mother, transracial adoptions that are so kind of trendy now.
David.
I loved this movie. This was one of those films that in the 80s, my family, my brother and my sisters would watch all the time. And it definitely has that sort of Reagan Morning in America quality to it, which is just like, you know, it's got the sweet music and it's the perfect suburb and it's like this family, you know, like the perfect family. They literally have 2.5 kids.
Exactly.
They've got the little baby and then they've got the 2 other kids and, you know, it's just...
It made me miss that kind of comedy. I mean, like, it's very unabrasive.
Yes.
In its comedy, and without being raunchy or dirty. I mean, it was a true family comedy, and yet still funny, not like lame, like Full House or something. Look at the supporting cast. I mean, you had Christopher Lloyd in a small.
He wasn't really in it that much.
Jeffrey Tambor,
Love
Edie
him.
McClurg. No, seriously. I mean,
I forgot,
Ann Gillian,
yeah.
Martin Mull. I mean, just like phenomenal talents from a time gone by.
Well, I like the marriage of Terry Garr and Michael Keaton because they're just like 2 of the sweetest, most disarming actors you could want to see.
And they were so right for the roles.
Yeah,
I mean, at the end of the day, they were still 2, even though, you know, Michael Keaton was fired, they were still 2 very, you know, desirable people, as was evidenced throughout the plot line, which I thought was interesting.
And that Michael Keaton thing that he does, like, I don't know how to describe it, but he is his own unique
He's
gifts.
so charming.
Do you agree when I say it's one of the most enduring comedies of the decade? I mean, I
definitely
it definitely invented the term Mr. Mom, which is used is still used today. I mean, but with less of a novelty factor to it. But there is a level of sexism here that I think is important. And in its unabrasiveness, it doesn't, you know, hit you in the face with it, but it's there and pokes fun at it. But I mean, I think what it has to say, if you look at it from a cultural perspective, I think is fascinating. And I think to some degree, I mean, maybe I'm overstepping the film's bounds here, but it made it okay, or it maybe started to help it make it okay for guys to stay at home, you know, and play the maternal role, the housewife.
I think it probably made it cooler.
I had to keep reminding myself that things were really, I did. I have to admit this.
But I mean, for what it's worth, you're a good deal younger than either of us. So I mean, like, you know, you were probably born around the time the film came out.
So I mean, for that reason, I guess I did have to.
But I'm serious. I mean, I feel like that makes a big difference.
Right, exactly.
Because we saw the film in 1984, 85.
This is uncomfortable for you, Dave. I'm sorry.
Do you have my prune juice?
Because I have a curfew. Can we wrap this up now?
That's a different perspective, and I feel like it makes a difference in that there's something foreign to you about this film, in that, like, there was a time when it was unusual for a guy to stay at home. You know, the idea is very common in comedies, and it's a fish out of water type comedy. But I mean, like, it is done, you know, so well. You know, if you look at it from that perspective, it can be seen as very, not cookie cutter, but certainly formulaic. But I mean, you know, consistently entertaining, and even the moments that are silly always seem plausible.
Yeah.
You know, like the kitty race.
It's set up really well, It's like Cheers, you know, Cheers was a formulaic sitcom, but, you know, there was something about it.
But, you know, formulas are formulas because they can work.
the whole film is taken at this sort of like, it's morning in America, but what's really going on in the morning? Like, this is really an issue. Like, the economy is kind of tanking right now. A lot of that can be really jarring and kind of painful while it's going on. And they could have sort of gone for more of a classic comedy kind of feel, but I don't think they did. They went for something really contemporary and said, we're going to make this really painful and funny.
Yeah.
Like, here's a guy who lost his job
Yeah.
and cannot find another one. And there's other guys, like, he goes out for the job interviews and they're like, there's not a job in this town to be found. And everybody else, you know, they just laugh because it's so sad.
You're right. I mean, I think this film is grounded in very real politics.
Yeah.
It's sad to some degree to a nation that was worried about its economy.
Right.
I do want to maybe throw out some nitpicky things. Technically, it was very sloppy, and the film manages to overcome its sloppy technical work. Cinematography is sort of flat. Sound is really bad. There's a lot of bad ADR moments. Bad in the sense of you can tell that they're ADR.
That tinny kind of.
Yeah. It was sort of sloppy. It was one of those things that they, even in 1983, they had the technical ability to avoid, those sort of things.
I will say, if we're going to look for nitpicky stuff, there's some odd sort of continuity things going on. Or, like, I noticed, this has always bothered me, like when he gets really angry about calling his wife and getting Martin Mull on the phone, and he kicks the TV. So there's a very clear shot of his foot kicking the TV, and he just knocks it over. But then there's another scene where
the shoe
there's
comes
a
out of
shoe
television
through the TV, and I'm like, when did this happen? And he didn't punch a hole in it. And then why would you call the repair person? Like, this is obviously a totaled television.
Well, and also the the whole idea of the washing machine going nutty.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's still funny, though. I mean, like, that's another example of, like, a really silly moment that they make seem plausible. All right, real quick, favorite moment.
There's the moment where Michael Keaton is going around the house and getting everybody ready to go to school and to get his wife to go to work and everything, and he goes into the kids' room and he's the drill sergeant.
Yeah.
And he has the BB gun and he has like this bugle and he's just like, all right, I want, and he's like kicking the bed.
That's when he's starting to get
go,
things together.
Move it, let's go. And he really embraces that role, and you see the kids just kind of like.
This is immediately after the my favorite moment, which is the wine, the art, the nightmare sequence.
Yeah.
That's actually funny
soap
because
opera.
that's actually
yours?
my favorite. Yeah, the event that I guess triggers,
Right.
the reform in his behavior, where it's so over the top, very soap opera-like in itself, and
the moment when he's shot in this dream montage, and then
he goes and he moves into that chalk outline of himself, which is great. Dead
brilliant. It's so brilliant. I'm going to throw out one more moment, since we share a moment, and that is one of the more actually touching moments of the film, and that is the moment when Michael Keaton gets his youngest son to give up his whoopee.
Oh yeah.
It's actually kind of a beautiful scene.
That is.
He compares whoopee, his whoopee addiction to drug addiction.
Yeah. You're strung out on bed sheets.
Right?
You're trying to have a quilt. But I like that he finishes his little plea. The kid keeps saying no, and then he goes, please. Like, you see him just really trying. And
So it's closing time, as the song goes. I want to thank David and Diane for celebrating my birthday with me this week. As per usual, however, it's time to pay the bills. Unreal 13 this week is one of the ultimate diva movies of all time, Judy Garland in A Star is Born, followed by the short that you will have chosen on Reel13.org. And then Mumblecore makes its way to Reel 13 with Andrew Bojowski's film, Funny Ha Ha. And if you have a profile on Facebook and are not yet a fan of the Reel 13 Facebook page, you don't know what you're missing, because there's great discussion, analysis, trailers, stills, you name it, we have it. Check it out when you have a chance. And Film ReVision will be back in July with a shorter haircut and a new discussion of a modern film. We'll see you then. Thank you very much.